Get me some for DJing. Are you guys like still doing that?
Okay, guys.
We skip it.
We can be forever. So, is everybody happy with exposure? Is everybody? You all had time to digest it, but so now's a good time to let me know if you don't get it. So everybody's happy?
Yep.
Okay. You're all excited.
Happy as a pig in shit.
Okay, so focal length, we talked about space compression. It's been a while.
Looking for a pencil. I love my technology toy. Top shop.
Oh, there's the clip.
I'm starting to feel really weird holding this and just recording.
Only 2 point, plus 1 point something kgs.
I'm actually surprised they quite comfortable.
Oh yeah, I'd be super easy bag. It's pretty bad.
Okay, so we're just going to briefly touch on something that before we broke for my to go and bang up at the bloggers. That's why it took me so long. Femoral arteries start to close up, and I need a bit of time to find the right place to juice up. Right. Anyway, so we were talking a little bit about focal length before. So just as a compositional tool. What do we think about, I mean, do you guys give much thought to sort of like why you go wide and why you go long and all that sort of stuff, like why you do it?
I think if you want to get into good compositing, you're going to have to. Because I mean, whenever we were just tell me what cameras and lenses you were using, so it would make sense to have that information.
So like, for example, dramatically, say you wanted a shot where, say there's two people in conversation and in another part of the room, the person that they're talking about is in the room. And if you were to use a long lens, for example, you could focus on the people in the foreground having the conversation, and you could have the person that they're talking about soft in the background. And then for dramatic purposes, perhaps when there's a sudden realization about this new bit of information about the person in the background, you could pull focus to the person and then see their face and then see them interacting, but you're filling the frame that's intimate. Do you know what I mean? But you're reducing what it is that you're looking at, you're isolating. Say it was in a cathedral or something like that, and there was a conversation happening between these two people here and these people here. What you're doing is you're stripping out the space and focusing in on their relationship, and you're just doing it through focal length. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Does that
sort of put it in a dramatic?
Does that work sort of in a similar way, like that shot that was in Jaws? You know, that sort of like famous one?
That's a sort of like a drag zoom sort of
Yeah.
thing. Is that the one that you're talking
Yeah,
about?
where the foreground would move forward and the background would just sort of slowly ease out.
Well, that's the point of that is that device is that they use there is to give you a sense of unreality. So it's sort of like your world is turned upside down sort of thing. That's why they pull that focus. So it's like the laws of physics don't apply. They're attaching like an optical device that sort of fucks with you. Do you know what I mean? It sort of unsettles you. So that's what they do. The thing that I'm talking about is literally sort of like, it's literally stripping out the background so that the relationships are what you're focusing on as opposed to the... I can't actually think of a suitable anime. I don't know what you guys are...
Misfits.
Misfits did it, did it? Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, there you go. Misfits. Seen. So that's how you might use it, you know. Same with, like, if you wanted to, if you were doing a shot of an establishing shot of a town or something like that, you might choose to use a crane shot with a wide angle so that you're seeing everything. But so they can do things. They all have different functions. So it's important to know dramatically or narratively why you would choose them. But it's also important for you to know the problems that you might have in using them. So, for example, with stills, the longer the lens, the more aggressively it shows off camera shake. So, for example, if you're shooting at a 60th of a second on a stills camera, not on a tripod, and you're shooting on a 400mm lens, you are going to have camera shake, guaranteed. So there's problems with choosing focal lengths for that. If you're shooting with a wide-angle lens and you're shooting a human, like say you're doing a fashion shot of a girl close up, and you're doing it rather than taking a step back, you decide to zoom out. But what you do is then you foreshorten them so you can make their shoulders look heavier, and you can give them a bigger arse than they have, or you know what I mean? They're like their belly comes out like that, and their legs are behind. Do you know what I mean? It's just not a good look. Sort of like that's kind of why most fashion shots for catalogs and stuff like that are shot on long lenses from low angles, because it makes legs look graceful, makes shoulders look good, and actually gives a disproportionately elegant view of the figure. Okay. So does that make sense? You also have problems with things like barrel distortion with wide-angle lenses, and curvature at the edges and stuff like that.
Is that what barrel distortion is?
Yeah, and then like you also have issues where if you're using things like, do you guys have shift lenses in virtual reality? Do you use shift lenses at all? Do you know how they work?
We haven't done that.
Okay.
So
maybe check out some YouTube tutorials on shift lenses, because they're really interesting as far as shooting wide angles in interior spaces. Yes, sir.
What is a shift lens?
Basically, the lens shifts. Like you can pull it up from the front. You can the elements split. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, so like narrow.
So yeah, it changes the plane. It allows you to move around in the circle of confusion.
Like in westerns would be used a lot that kind of way.
It's more sort of used in architectural shooting and stuff like that. I think there was some of them used in. Actually, some of it was used in. The Coen brothers use it sometimes when people are like in drug-induced things, because they use it for how it warps the shift of field and stuff.
Like Big Lebowski?
Yeah. So it allows you to move around in the circle of confusion. Like basically, when you're looking at a picture, you're looking at a rectangle, but the picture that comes in is actually a circle. Do you know what I mean? It allows you to shift around in the plane a little bit and correct lines that are converging. So when you're doing a shot of a building from underneath, the parallel lines will start to converge. You use the shift lens, that will equalize it out and pull them back out. Okay? So that's why it's interesting for you guys to learn how to potentially use that. It might be a good device for you to use if you don't want everything. I know sometimes for dramatic purposes you may want that, you know what I mean? But sometimes you don't want it, and it can make architecture in particular look really, really powerful and strong. You know, like how you compress space changes the identity of the feel of objects. Anyway, case in point. So let's just have a quick look at. I know that. No, I shouldn't be using that. I should be using this. Oh, it appeared. Okay, so can you see? So I went up 4 and went up to there. So can you see how compressed that space is? Does that make sense to you? how compressed it is. Like it feels like the space between the objects is kind of
Crammed.
it's kind of compressed. You see what I'm talking about? So if I open it up a little bit, I can do this obviously more with a wide angle lens and really exaggerate it. But so can you see the space start to open up there?
Yeah.
Between the objects. So that's what I'm talking about. So again, if you want to try the hand exercise, right? If you want to try the hand exercise where you're looking at things and then you're doing that, then you're actually seeing how it will compress the space. But as you walk into it, you see the space open up. Okay? Or as you do that, you see the space open up. Okay? So either actually stepping in will open up the space for the angle, right? Go ahead, give it a shot. What can you do? Only embarrass yourself. Look at those fingers. Those horrible bony fingers.
McBride wants a hug.
So can you see what I'm talking about? And as you move, like one of the things that people forget to do with stills cameras is to walk because they zoom. Okay. So, like when I'm teaching my first years in Griffith, they're only allowed to use one lens. They're only allowed to use the standard lens, and they can't zoom. So they start to use the rule of thirds and discipline, and they move around objects. So they look at, okay, what's happening with the light? How do I place the objects and stuff? It slows you down, and working slower is better for discipline. Like once you learn those sorts of languages, then you can forget them. Okay. The idea behind doing technical testing is in creativity, it's important for you to be in two states, right? It's important for you to play, and it's important for you to be closed, okay? So when you're closed, that's the best time for doing technical work that is, you know, it's learning, it's not innovation. And what you're doing is with the technical work is you're learning the language of your programs, of your cameras, of light, and all that sort of stuff. And you're learning it not necessarily in a playful way. Like you can play with it, but it's not necessarily innovation, you know. And then the idea is that you subsume that information so that when you're playing and when you're thinking in narrative and when you're actually in it, then you can be spontaneous and you can be playful and you can be creative when you're in this other space, okay, when you're in the innovative space. Does that make sense to you guys? So the more technique you can almost subsume and kind of forget, the better for you going forward as far as the visual medium. I'm just going to think of one other thing here. Like I was really, really good at English in school when I was in high school, like secondary school. That's kind of weird. I always thought I was still good at English. Do you know what I mean? And it turned out when I went back to writing, no, pants. And the same with drawing. I was great at drawing in school, but once I let the skills drop. So you can't forget, but you need to always be doing, you need to always be practicing for that level of subsuming. It still needs to be working almost in your subconscious all the time and informing your decisions. So that's why it's important for you to learn this fundamental stuff. It's not as important as the play stuff, but it fuels it. It fuels your innovation. So pay attention to it. Yeah, that's why it's good to know here. You only need to know what you need to know, but try and know it so it frees you. Make sure. Flower into. I'll just give you a quick look at how objects might get distorted, and then we'll start playing with that. Oh, that holds that on, doesn't it? Yeah. So in general, stick that on there.